The Trump administration, as we know by now, has begun renovations on what will be a $250 million addition to the White House.
The White House is calling the ballroom a bold, necessary addition that echoes the storied history of improvements and additions by previous presidents. The renovation has drawn pushback after the scenes of the demolition went viral. But how does this actually line up with historical changes to the People's House? Let's get more from Kate Andersen Brower, a former White House reporter for Bloomberg and the author of 2 New York Times bestsellers, including several about the White House itself. Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So tell us about this demolition. A lot of people were shocked. Shocked to see that part of the White House was being torn down. How did that land with you?
Well, I'm surprised by the scope of it. We were told that we wouldn't see bulldozers to the East Wing in such a dramatic way. But I also think that there is historic precedent for redoing the White House. Obviously, Harry Truman, that was the last big renovation in the late 40s, early 50s. People were not happy with the Truman balcony. In fact, he had to raise funds himself. But I think that there's a lot of concern about just the scope of this project and about whether or not there's any oversight whatsoever in terms of what he's doing.
So the president, who we know can be prone to hyperbole from time to time, has said that this is something that all previous presidents wanted to do. He's just the one that is actually doing it. Is that true? Have past presidents, A, wanted a ballroom, or B, wanted to make significant structural changes to the White House?
Yes and no. Trump proposed this when President Obama was in office, and they said, no, thank you. There has always been a concern about state dinners and having this giant tent on the South Lawn. And, when it rains, it was difficult. And there was, I think, a legitimate argument that there should be more entertaining space in the White House. Now, this is dwarfing the size of the White House itself, 90,000 square feet. It's going to be larger than 2 football fields. The White House itself is now 55,000 square feet. So you have the National Trust for Historic Preservation sending a note to Congress and to the White House saying, please pause this project until there can be more oversight. It does feel like it's just being rammed through. And as somebody who's covered the history of the White House and talked to a lot of the resident staff, including White House curators, this is a really painful thing for them to see because they care so much about every square inch of that house. And it is the people's house. And there should be a little bit more thought and I think time given to something this massive of a change.
So asking the White House to hit the pause button doesn't really have any teeth, right? The White House could say yes or no, just continue doing what it wants. Is there anything that could actually make them stop and hit that pause button?
That's a great question. And the answer, unfortunately, to that is no. I think what we've seen with Donald Trump is that he is a precedent-breaking president in every way. And this is just another example of that. He's not going to stop. He is going to get this through because for him, this is like a really important thing to leave his mark on the White House itself. Can you imagine building a structure twice as big as the White House and maybe calling it the Trump ballroom? I'm sure that he's going to do something to leave his mark there so that 100, 200 years from now, people look back and know who built that. So I think that everything else with the White House has been done very incrementally, very thoughtfully. And this is just, like I said, just being rammed through with little to no oversight whatsoever.
Does this addition, while as beautiful as the artist rendering looks at as it ultimately may be, does it change in your mind sort of the mystique of the White House, all the history-making events that we have seen at this building, in the Rose Garden, things like that?
Yeah, I think that this is the people's house, and there is a sense of ownership that I think every American should feel of the house. And so I think it changes. It's a massive change to the footprint of the house itself. The White House has always been a fairly modest presidential house. When you look at Buckingham Palace and other and presidential and prime ministers' residences around the world, they're often a lot bigger. And there is something important. I think that George Washington wanted the White House to not be a palace. And this makes it look like a palace. And that's concerning because we don't want the president to be a king. And so I think that it does do something to change the House itself in a very big and real way.
It makes it an asymmetrical White House. It takes away that symmetry.
Exactly. And that's so important to the House to have that symmetry. So it's kind of startling, I think, for most people.
All righty, Kate, thanks so much. We really appreciate it.